Hi, hello.
Hi, how are you?
We are okay. How are you?
I have no complaints. If I did, who would listen, right?
Well, first of all, we would like to say, thank you so much for reaching out to us. Everything that we've read about you is so inspirational. So
Thank
we
you.
feel honored to be able to be speaking to you today.
Definitely.
Uh, well, thank you very much. I'm privileged to spend time with you. I can't believe it's 10 o'clock your time. I mean,
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know, I know. Yeah, sometimes we get a bit confused with like the hours, and we need to make sure that we've got the right time here with you because we don't want to, get things wrong. And especially because the clocks went forward for us,
yeah,
so that changes things even
Yeah,
more.
got very confused.
yeah, that's tough. I mean, I would have thought you'd be out and relaxing and not working at 10 o'clock in the evening, huh?
No, we don't mind. We don't mind. These are like to be able to do this and speak with you is something that we don't mind.
Great. Well, it's excellent. I've read your journey, and it's really inspiring as to what the both of you have gone through, and just the storyline. I mean, just to go from like Barbados all the way up to England. I mean, that's a big transition, not only from a weather perspective, but
Mm.
just like a lifestyle change. So I really enjoyed reading the background of the story, and my condolences and everything. I mean, we're all part of this together.
Yeah, yeah, that's how we felt with reading everything that you've experienced, even just from childhood and everything in between to get to where you are today. And it's so, so positive the way that you are helping people and making a difference. When we were reading the book, there were so many things that we were like, oh my goodness, we can relate to it, we can resonate with it.
Mm.
And it was making me feel like uplifted.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it was definitely a challenge to write. Um, I was encouraged to go deeper and share my thoughts, things that I haven't spoken about in the 46 years of my life. And it's funny, when my mother read the book, she calls me up, and she never calls me. I'm always the one that calls her. And
Yeah.
she's like, you know what? You open up in a book, but you never open up to your mother and father in
Mm,
46 years. Like, what, why now? And I'm like,
yeah.
well, it's a book. You gotta do that. That's what they told me. If I wanted to get across the goal line and publish,
Hmm.
I gotta go deep. And
Yeah.
uh, it was a challenge, but at the end of the day, it's about me helping others, just like what you do as well. And sometimes you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah. That's a really good way to put
Yeah.
it, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely.
Because even for us, like doing this interview, we haven't really done many recently because last year, May, our grief probate journey Instagram account got hacked, and then they got into
Mhm.
so many other things, and it just really messed with our confidence and all of that. So we only started back in September last year, so we're just starting to again push ourselves out of comfort zones to get back into things.
Yeah.
No, I certainly applaud. And again, everything happens for a reason, as you always said. And um, it was a setback, but now you've got a new plan in place, and look where we are today, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's just it's really warm in terms of how your approach has been. So it's definitely excited to be here with you.
Yeah, I think as well for us, what has helped as well, it's the people that we meet along the way, because we might be feeling really low and think, oh, you know what, I don't think we should do this anymore. But then it might just be a comment from someone, and we see the difference that we're making. And then when you've reached out to us and we see how inspiring you are, we're like, well, we must be doing something good and making a bit of a difference for that to happen. And we enjoy sharing other people's experiences because we believe it isn't just about us.
No, it's not.
Agreed.
No, definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
no,
with that, we just wanted to try and, start off by asking a bit more about yourself and, your journey.
sure, sure. Please do.
Okay, so yeah, could you just like tell us, you know, like your childhood experiences, you know, how you dealt with that and how that impacted you growing up, things like that.
My journey really begins at a young age, and at the time when I was about 3 years old, my parents were sort of perplexed as to why I wasn't responding the way I should be at that development phase. And what we found is that I was diagnosed with a mild to severe hearing impairment, which explains a lot of questions. However, sometimes when you get a medical diagnosis, which is answers one question, but additional questions follow, like how do you cope with this? How does AJ, as a young boy, cope with this so he can grow as an adult? How do my parents cope with that as parents to say, well, my child might be a little bit different? And as I continued on my journey, my parents have done a great job trying to protect me, educate me. But what they learned is that I was thrown in the mainstream, just like everybody else. No accommodations. I had to fight for myself, learn how to adjust, learn how to sort of advocate for myself in certain situations, compensate when I was at loss. And I remember my father telling me the story that when I had trouble, I learned to read lips very early. And you can be far away. I might not be able to hear you, but I can read your lips. And there was the time where the teachers in the 70s and the 80s were using chalkboard to write, and they would turn their back. And I was lost. I would try to pick up the pieces. And my father's story said, well, they went to the principal to ask for the accommodation, and the principal responded, well, maybe your son should go to the school for the deaf if he can't handle it here. And, you know, my parents did a lot to shelter me for that. But what I will tell you, what was missing is how do we cope when you're given some sort of medical diagnosis? And again, you know, a hearing impairment compared to other things today might not be significant, but those that have it, it is significant to them. And
very much.
I never learned how to cope with it. And my response was to always be in the mainstream, try to do exactly work harder than everybody else. And for 46 years of my life, I chose to ignore it. And I chose not to disclose it. And growing up was a challenge because those that knew me knew about my history. But when I went off to college, and it was a different lifestyle altogether, and those people had no idea about my background, and I never let them in. How it shaped me for who I am today is through the years when I had different types of setback and different types of challenges. I always think about, well, it's really falls on me. And I've adopted this personality that says, okay, well, I'm going to find a way. I'm going to create opportunities where there are barriers and look for opportunities when there are setbacks. And over time, it just became just instantaneously. And as I had gone through different areas, whether it's a job loss, whether it's dealing with anxiety, and ultimately dealing with the loss of a spouse, I'm able to put it on my shoulders and continue to move forward in life. And I think a lot of what my purpose is to help others do the same. And I'm able to speak very freely about, especially the grief part of the loss of a spouse and being a single dad, really easily, because the way my wife had passed, I had given her what I believe was a storybook ending that not only allows her to go, but allows me to continue to move on to keep her legacy alive.
We've just seen, you know, the things that you put together of your daughter for her while you know, she was preparing for surgery and things like that. And like as you said, like just being there for someone, them knowing that is like, you know, that is priceless for them, precious and priceless to know that they are loved. So, you know, that it must have been so much for you. You know, it was reading, like, you know, all the different surgeons, you know, speaking to you and telling you all of those things, and you've got to take all of that on, but at the same time be strong. So, you know, that's really the way that you explained it, and you know, it's so inspiring, and it's really relatable at the same time.
Definitely.
You know, really admirable the way that you've done that. And also, like, for us, as well as sharing about grief, we also share about medical conditions as well, because that, like our dad being diagnosed with his condition, we'd never heard of it before.
Yeah.
So just so happens this week we're doing one on awareness and trying to include as many as possible. And one of the things is Deaf Awareness Week. It's this week in the UK.
Yeah. And like on TV at the moment, there's a specific program that we have, and it's called Loose Women. And they discuss, and they have all different topics and things that they talk about. But this episode that they had was about deaf awareness, and they had someone on there that's an actress, and she's gone through and done lots of things. And she was just explaining like her life and how things have been for her. And then like, even in the breaks or the commercials that they in between, everything was like signed, and everything was, there was no speech, everything was signed. And it was sort of, it just sort of took me back a bit, because it just, obviously I would never understand or know that, but it just made me think more and sort of have that feeling as well. So it's kind of really a lot to sort of grasp and get to grips and to understand. But yeah, it was.
I think it is starting to be portrayed a lot more, because I've forgotten her name, but this particular person that my sister's speaking about, she was on Strictly Come Dancing or Dancing on Ice, and for one of her performances, the music cut off, and at first everyone didn't understand what was happening, and then they realized this is what it's like for her. She has to move to the movements that she sees, and it's not the music that she hears. So it is really being, you know, portrayed a lot more over here, which we think is a good thing. And as we said, we always try to highlight these things a lot more where we can.
Yes, I mean, it definitely experience that I go through it, you know, the pandemic.
Yeah.
It took away my ability to read lips.
Yeah.
People were in masks here, and rightfully so, protecting their health, and that's more important than me trying to read people's lips. And but there would be places where I go to a restaurant, or I try to order out food, or even go to the bank, and I can't understand what the individual is saying. And but I'm watching the eyes, I'm watching the facials, trying to put it. And there are some times where I prepare myself, knowing if I'm going to a bank, I'm withdrawing cash, there's probably going to be some questions related to, you know, how much to, so I try to plan ahead of time exactly in paper, here's how much I want to withdraw, here's what I need to do to minimize the questions that come back. But yes, I mean, it definitely, when there's no sound, you start looking around like, what's wrong? Then you joke about it, right? I mean, there's some sounds that you don't want to hear, right? I mean, there's just like, you know, so you know, we kind of luck out with that as well. But overall, being in the mainstream, and as I continue to get more comfortable talking about my hearing impairment, it's kind of grows with age, right? It's sort of like, who cares, right? You have a hearing impairment, who cares? You know, people wear glasses, people have hearing aids, people have other, but we're all the same people. And I think today versus the 70s and the 80s, that we're more accommodating, we're more accepting of those people. Back then, it was just strange. And I think that's where it becomes more of a challenge. And that's where the grief part comes in, is because you're traumatized by what's happened in the past. And going forward, you know, dating was hard, right? I mean, perception is everything. Who wants to date somebody who had hearing aids and who had a disability? Because it's hard enough from a social acceptance as a young person. Now you've got that other aspect, but you know, that's part of the trauma, and that's part of what I carry with me in my childhood, that I'm hoping to help others who have been diagnosed, who are others who have gone through similar interactions for whatever that they go through, that there are people out there like myself, like yourself, that are accommodating, that are out there to help educate and just be an inspiration. And that's important for all of us.
Yeah,
Definitely.
definitely. Also, the way that you said turn it around, that it's not a disability, and you learn in different ways to cope with it. That was something that I really picked up from your book, and I thought, you know what, that is just amazing way to look at it, and that's something that I was, I mentioned that to you, and I just thought that's really amazing.
It truly is, definitely. It's like the person, I think it's Rose Ailing.
Yeah, Rose Ailing is her name. Oh,
something.
yeah.
And she was saying that for her, she wouldn't ever want to, she wouldn't like people trying to say they can fix things, or you like wishing things could be different, but she said she wouldn't want anything to be different for her, because this is who she is, this is what makes her this, for all her experiences, this is where she's come to, and that's who she is. So she wouldn't even change it. She said, I mean, I know everyone has a different way of looking at things and feelings, but that was something that she brought out, and I thought, wow, it's kind of true when you think about it, that you are who you are, and you shouldn't be ashamed of who you are, sort of thing.
And sometimes the things that you can go through make you a stronger person.
And I agree with that wholeheartedly. In the book I had mentioned, right, if you can go back in time and change certain things, but it's sort of like the butterfly effect. I mean, what would we turn out the same way as we did? And the answer is no. And who we are today is a result of our experiences, result of our trauma, result of our grief. And we have people who have touched us in profound ways. It's up to us to continue to carry out their legacy. And that, whether we agree or we don't agree, but life happens for certain reasons, and depending on your spirituality and your faith, it helps you cope with some of those. Okay, I don't understand it, I don't like it, I was born like this, or this happened to me, where the loved one was taken too soon. There's something bigger than all of us. And I don't believe that we would be put in a position like this if we couldn't handle it. And that's different than saying, well, we don't like it. It's just whether we can handle it and do something for the greater good. And as I learned on my journey, how we grow and how we educate, this tells me what our purpose is. And one day we'll look back and look at these podcasts, we'll look at the books that have been written, and these are going to be stories that are going to be told for years. And people are going to say, hey, remember that podcast, this individual, this group of people who gone through this, like, look what they've done. It's like, holy cow, we're in the same position.
Yeah, because for us, even like this blog, it wasn't planned, but like with everything that we went through, and there were so many unknowns, and it just felt like they were constantly just being thrown at us. And I think it's also part of what our dad was like, because he liked to help people, like for people's rights and things like that. So I think that's one of the reasons why we were like, we need to share this, because a lot of things, it was too late for us, but we were like, if we can make a difference for one person, or if someone knows someone that is going through this and it can help them, it's worth it.
Yeah, just to share our experience, and just hope that, as my sister said, it can sort of resonate with someone else, or someone that they know, and just try to
And the thing is, it's kind of grown into its own as we've gone along, because we started with one thing, but then people share with us, people we do things like this and we learn. We're always learning. And so we're sharing and we're learning as we go along. And also, like, why we'd like to speak to you today, because it's speaking about perspectives from a male perspective, because sometimes it's not always easy for men to feel that they can have a safe space to open up and speak about things. So that's why we felt that this was really important, speaking to you today, with the many things that you've gone through and come through and are doing such an amazing thing. So that's another reason why we was like really glad that this opportunity has come about.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, people have asked me, why do you choose to speak? And again, not many men come forward because they feel that you be the centerpiece, the strong, everything. But what I've learned is sometimes talking is very therapeutic.
Mhm.
And having somebody who may have gone through something similar, it's knowing that they're not the only one going through it. And I think so part of society today is that men feel they have to be macho or
Yeah.
to be, but it's not about that. And I think for me, being not only having a disability, but also being a widower, being a single dad, losing my job, numerous amount of times, and just the luck of the draw. It's again, it's like to come forward to share these experiences. It's important, and widowers, men who are young, like I was at 33 years old, like we didn't know where to go. I didn't have a support group. I didn't know there were organizations out there. My focus was my daughter. My focus was my career, trying to balance out everything while everybody else was giving me advice on what they think I should be doing.
Mhm.
And I learned just to trust my instincts, trust what I know best. And I'm not here to please everybody. I'm not here to make everybody happy. And there were times where I think certain family members disagreed with me on certain approaches that I had with my daughter. And I think a lot of people who knew me just thought I would just collapse into an oblivion. And that was it. But little did they know that my childhood past has prepared me for today,
Yeah.
right? And I put it on my shoulders. I knew I had to be strong. The funeral was sort of kind of surreal. I didn't really
Mhm.
fully grasp what was really happening, but I knew that I had to remain strong. I
Yeah.
did not get emotional. I needed to hold it together because I felt that I had to lead
Mm.
everything through. And I broke down in my own private moments, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But to be able to speak about these things, I think it's really critical because I think today we're so focused on health and well-being that this segment gets overlooked. And even
Yeah.
people who just don't know who to turn to, and you watch, these high TV profiles and the reality shows, the
Mm.
celebrities who have endless amount of resources available, but it's hard to resonate with them on their
Yeah.
grief.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I choose to come forward and speak a little bit more to try to help others, knowing that I'm just a regular person. I put my shoes on the same way as everybody else.
Yeah.
Real person. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's one of the things that we feel that it's not necessarily enough support for men going through this, and for widowers and for single dads, and that's something that is very important, like you're saying, for mental health and well-being, and especially now with everything that's going on with the cost of living crisis and things like that. It's even more important for men to be speaking about things, and even like there's some health issues that affect them more than women. So as you're saying, speaking about these things, we feel that it is something that is definitely really important.
Yes, I think there's a correlation between health and stress. I'm not a medical provider,
Yeah.
but when you're stressed out, your body has the commonality to like decompress and break down, right? And then you can't think, you can't operate. And I think speaking overall, it's helpful, but it's a single dad at times. I got myself into some interesting moments, right? You go to a birthday party and you hear a lot of too much gossip. It's not really where I should probably be listened to, but I'm just trying to like reading the lips across the room, listening where I can. But there are times where I go into a men's bathroom to change my daughter, and sometimes in the men's bathroom there's no changing table, or it's really a little too filthy. And I start trying to change her vertically because I don't want to put her anywhere. I don't want to touch anything. And then as she ages, we get into some funny moments where when she started talking to everybody, when they're like these little toddlers, they talk to to everybody. And we would walk into the men's group, and my daughter would say hi to everybody, and the men would turn around and look at me strange because
Yeah.
nobody talks, right? And I got to apologize and say, oh, so she's just talkative.
Yeah.
But these are great memories to share, and it's not all doom and gloom being a single parent, being a widower. I mean, you do have some highlights, moments,
Yeah.
and that bond.
And that's another thing as well, that it's like going through it, it's like, oh my gosh, this is like quite a lot, but then it's like, but then it turns around into something really positive, like, the way that you deal with like anxiety and all of these things. It's like, just the more I was reading, it's like, oh my gosh, I just wanted to keep reading more and more and more, because it's very real and authentic, and it's just gives such good examples of how, like you're saying, normal everyday life to deal with things like this.
It is, and it's not as common, right? I remember when I had to register my daughter for kindergarten, her first year of public school. And we're filling out the application, her and I'm looking at the boxes, and they're asking you for your status, whether you're single, whether you're married, whether you're divorced. Those were it. I'm neither.
Yeah.
And I had to go to the administrative people and say, look, what do I check for a widower? And they looked at me and they were like, huh? Like, you're a widower? I'm not trying to make a big deal of it, but I'm trying to fill out a form.
Yeah.
And it's not as common to see a dad with a little girl without the mom. And we get ourselves into situations where they say, well, where's the mom? And how do you respond to that? I try to always be genuine and say, I'm sorry, the mother is deceased. But you ask my daughter, she'll tell you a different story. She'll just say, my mom died.
Yeah.
So that's one of the keys that I've learned very quickly, is how kids resonate to the childhood home.
Yeah.
That's different than some of the other peers. And I never used the word sick, that mommy got sick. Because if she got sick with the flu bug or a tummy ache or something, like she thinks she's gonna die.
Yeah.
I always use the word illness, because illness is more relatable for her, that she doesn't hear when she goes to the doctor when she's not feeling well. Say, hey, you have an illness. No, you're sick. Oh, okay, I'll get better.
Yeah.
Little things like that we learn through.
Yeah, and even now speaking to you, this is another perspective of like what it's like for a man, like just you said, going into the bathroom with your daughter and things like that. There's so many things that can be overlooked, and you just wouldn't ever think of them. So it's like kind of learning on your feet with a lot of things that you've gone through.
I'm still learning. I mean, I make mistakes here and there as a father, as a parent, as a person, and you learn. And I think you'd have to develop a short-term memory at times for things that aren't as favorable. So then you can just kind of come back faster and stronger. But yeah, there are things today that I scratch my head with my daughter, not knowing what she's thinking and trying to understand and respect. I mean, just last night, I mean, she went out with friends and came home a little later. I mean, like, what do I do, right? I have to be very careful of what I say and how I interpret things, because today, at 15 years old that she is, I mean, she's still sensitive to certain things and coming home and doing things. But I enjoy being a dad. I'm trying to do things differently than how I grew up, and try to be more understanding, more empathetic to when she comes to me and says certain things. And my parents would have said no, and I try to say yes. I try to say yes where I can, because the yes factor is really, you never know what opportunities are going to take you. I don't want to take her dress shopping because I don't know what I'm looking at, right? But if I go, you never know what may come of it. You might run into somebody, you might meet somebody, it might be an opportunity. And I think I take that same approach with her. trying to help her advocate for herself when she goes out and does things. Tell me what you want. Don't just introduce what you want. Just come out and say it. But it's definitely a challenge as I'm still learning and growing. And I don't know if I'll ever fully have a total understanding of how she operates, but
Yeah.
maybe she'll teach me one day.
That's good, because it sounds like, they say that, sometimes you can bond more with your dad, but it's nice that you have that kind of, relationship, and it seems like it's open and honest, and, that's really, it's a positive thing. It's a a nice thing to have. We just wanted to ask you just like a few more questions, because unfortunately we're being told we're running out of time. Yes, like flashed up to let us know that we're running out of time. But what we did want to ask is that what advice would you give to those that are in grief that could help them with what they're experiencing, and maybe in particular men, because it is different for them?
That's a great question. I mean, one of the best advice that I can give anybody in grief is know that you're maybe in the moment, but it's not a lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where there's a difference, where you choose to celebrate the life of the loved one, or whatever it is you're grieving, whether it's a loss of a job, a loss of companionship, loss of religion, or anything else that relates to just not necessarily a loved one, that you're never going to be in that moment. Pull things through. And the one area I like to talk about is when you're in the morning, you're in the grief period, you're focused on the why. Why did this happen? Why me? Why didn't this happen to somebody else? Like, what if this would have happened down the road? Why? And what happens is when you start transitioning from the why to the where segment, where am I going? Where do I go to get help? Where do I go to grow? Then you start transforming into that celebratory. I'm celebrating that issue. I am moving on. I am no longer going to grieve. Some people equate it with the why and how. How am I getting there? How do I go from there? But I use the term the where because, like, keep those feet moving. You're moving around. You're going somewhere. So I use the why and where. So my advice is definitely know that you're not have to stay in the same spot indefinitely. It's up to you to move on. You can get help and support, which is great, but the ultimate person is you, and only you can pull yourself out.
That is so
Oh, do you know what? That is a very good way to look at it. What are you going to say?
No, I'm saying that, yeah, same thing. It's really true. It's really honest the way you speak and you relate with what you're saying and everything. It's just,
it will make people feel that they can feel like they can speak to you, open up to you. Like, we've never actually, I've read your book, so through that I feel like I've got to know you, but actually speaking to you, it's just like been really nice, and just relaxing, considering what we're speaking about. So thank you for that. Oh, just one other thing, like where people could find out more about you, if you want to say that.
Sure. I have a website called keepthosefeetmoving.com. It's a little about who we are and what I do. I used to write a lot of blog posts, and over the years, it's transitioned to a little bit more into video, into podcasts. So we're learning to catch that. My book is also mentioned on there, same title, Keep Those Feet Moving. You can purchase it right on Amazon. And you can always reach out to me. I'm always happy to engage with other people to learn about their stories and learn where I can help them. And I try to be as personal as I can, because nobody should ever grieve alone.
Definitely not. Definitely not.
it's definitely, yeah.
Okay, well, it's been really, really nice speaking to you, and hopefully we can speak at another time and maybe talk about something else. But thank you very much for your time, and yeah, we will keep in touch. But it's been very nice speaking to you today.
So see you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure meeting you both. Thanks for the opportunity.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.